Violet's gonna go for another flamethrower on Glalie, and Glalie hangs on with 8%, but oh no, gets burned. Hello friends, my name is Factually Frankie, and welcome back to another episode of Gotta Drag 'Em All, my world-renowned crossover series that pits the bottom queens in an episode of Drag Race against each other in a 6v6 Pokemon battle to see who sachets and who shantays. Last time on Gotta Drag 'Em All, we saw Jaden win her third battle in a row and send Tempest home on episode 8, which is completely wild when you consider that Tempest was originally the pork chop queen of season 7. Like I said before, instead of a top 3, we'll have our final Elite 4 duke it out in a Poke Battle, Pokeperuza Battle Royale smackdown for the crown. We'll also have a special guest join us for the grand finale, so if you're as jazzed as I am, then make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss out. Episode 9, Divine Inspiration, is another acting challenge, and has the queens paying tribute to drag legend and icon Divine. In the original episode, Ginger and Trixie team up, and Katya and Kennedy team up, leaving Violet, Miss Fame, and Pearl as the third team. To keep things simple, I'll keep Ginger and Trixie, and Miss Fame and Violet as pairs, which means Katya and Jaden will be our third team. Based on these groups, I'm going to say something controversial yet brave. Since Jaden has been in the bottom 3 weeks in a row in our series, I'm gonna say that the fire under her will have been sufficiently lit at this point, and that she's gonna turn it out. Or, at least be safe. And if we go with the other placements from the actual episode, that means our bottom queens would be Violet and Miss Fame. Since neither of our fashion queens have been in the bottom before, we get to cover both of their teams, so let's start by taking a look at Miss Fame's looks from the season. First up, we have her entrance look, then her spring runway, followed by her fall runway, nude illusion, jet set eleganza runway, and her bearded and beautiful runway. Then we have her green runway, her Despy Awards look, her Death Becomes Her, leather and lace, conjoined twins, and ugliest dress runway with her finale look there in the center. In terms of her team, we start off with Miss Magius, who I chose based on Miss Fame's purple entrance look. Miss Magius specializes in being pretty speedy and specially offensive with a good special defense stat as well. It's got great moves for coverage like Shadow Ball, Dazzling Gleam, and Thunderbolt, which will all be boosted by 1.5 times because of the choice specs. Next, we have Milotic, who I chose based on Fame's Nude Illusion runway with the baby blues, the nudes, and the red hair. Not to mention, Milotic is said to be the most beautiful Pokemon in the world, and Miss Fame's makeup and runways were definitely a cut above the rest this season. Milotic is quite tanky on the special side with excellent special defense and HP stats. It also has a respectable special attack stat, which it will use to pump out damage with moves like Scald and Dragon Pulse. It'll also be running a Resto Chesto set, meaning it'll use Rest to restore its health and clear status effects, and then use its held Chesto Berry to wake it up immediately. Its ability is Competitive, which will raise its special attack each time one of its stats is lowered by an opponent, making it quite tricky to deal with. Next up, we have Blaziken, who I chose based on Miss Fame's bearded and beautiful runway, as well as the fact that Blaziken is basically a chicken, which are Miss Fame's favorite animals. Blaziken has a great attack stat, and while its speed stat isn't inherently all that good, it makes up for it with the ability Speed Boost, which will raise its speed stat by 1 stage each turn it's on the field. A choice band means that its moves like Flare Blitz and High Jump Kick will threaten to knock out anything that tries to stop it. Next, we have Excadrill, who I chose based on Miss Fame's Death Becomes Her runway, with the knife through her head reminiscent of Excadrill's, pointy drill-like head. Similar to Blaziken, Excadrill is really strong physically with a high attack stat. It has okay bulk and a good HP stat, and good defensive typing being ground and steel. With a Citrus Berry for extra survivability, Excadrill will be dishing out good damage with Earthquakes and Iron Heads. Next, we have Noivern, who I chose based on Fame's Finale runway, with the white fur around its neck giving off the same vibes as Fame's platinum blonde hair, and the tippy points of its wings matching the pointy part of Miss Fame's bodice. Noivern's main shtick is being incredibly fast, but frail. It also has an okay special attack stat, but to really make an impact, its attacks will be boosted by 1.3 times with a life orb, making it more of a glass cannon on Miss Fame's team. And lastly, we have Glalie, who I chose because it's a floating head. And, Miss Fame was always in her own head when asked, "How's your head?" So I thought this was a totally fun choice. Glalie is a really interesting Pokemon because its base stats are all the same across the board, and pretty meh overall. What really makes Glalie a wild card though is its ability Moody, which will give it a +2 in a random stat, but also a -1 in a random stat each turn it's on the field. Overall, Miss Fame's team focuses mostly on being hyper-offensive with physical attackers like Blaziken and Excadrill, and special attackers like Noivern, Mismagius, and Milotic. Milotic, who also has a good special defense stat to help provide some support to Fame's team. Meanwhile, Glalie is truly all about getting lucky with Moody stat changes, but it really does have that potential to just sweep through any team. Moving right along now to Violet's runway package, we have her entrance look, her spring runway, her iconic fall runway, Nude Illusion, Jet Set Eleganza, Bearded and Beautiful, green runway, and her Despy dress. Then we have another iconic runway with her Death Becomes Her look, followed by Leather and Lace, conjoined twins look with Max, her ugliest dress, half man, half woman, her Hello Kitty couture, and best drag look. And of course we have Violet's finale gown from when she was crowned as the winner of Season 7 in the middle there. In terms of her team, we start off with Roserade, who's partially based off on the greens and, other fun colors of Violet's spring runway, and partially just because the sly look in Roserade's eyes just give off Violet vibes to me. Roserade is a great special attacker who has some decent special bulk and speed as well. With a Citrus Berry for extra health regen and the ability Poison Point to give it a chance to poison enemies that attack it, Roserade will be pretty annoying to deal with. Next, we have Salazzle, who I chose based on Violet's Despy Awards dress and color palettes. Salazzle primarily fits in the Glass Cannon archetype with super high speed and special attack, but middling defensive stats. Its typing of Poison and Fire, while strong offensively, is also 4 times weak to ground moves, so the item Air Balloon will help alleviate some of that pressure. Its ability Corrosion is also pretty unique as it allows Salazzle to poison Steel types and other poison types which are typically immune. Next, we have the OG ghost Pokemon Gengar, because of Violet's Death Becomes Her look, and as she said herself, bitch, she really could die. Gengar actually fits the same exact mold as Salazzle, being really fast and really strong on the special attacking side. And similar to Salazzle, Gengar is also weak to ground moves, so it's holding a Shucca Berry to help dampen one incoming ground-type attack. Next, we have Gardevoir, who I chose based on a combination of Violet's green runway matching Gardevoir's hands and hair, and Violet's conjoined twins runway with the red triangle in the middle of the dress sort of replicated by the red fin/horn on Gardevoir's chest. Gardevoir is another powerhouse on the special attacking side, who also has great special defense. Leftovers will give it a little bit more staying power, and the ability Trace will allow it to copy its opponent's abilities, which could really swing the tide of battle. Powerful stab moves like Psyshock and Moonblast means it'll definitely be a threat whenever it's on the field. Next, we have Mienshao, who I chose based on Violet's crowning look. Mienshao is a speedy physical attacker. A life orb will boost its attacks by 30%, and its ability Regenerator means it'll heal up to 1/3 of its max HP each time it switches out. With moves like Fake Out, Protect, and U-Turn, its goal will be to slowly chip away at its opponent's health bars as it switches in and out to help control the pace of the battle. And lastly, we have Liepard, who I chose primarily due to its Pokédex entry which says, "Don't be fooled by its gorgeous fur and elegant figure. This is a moody and vicious Pokemon." And honestly, I thought that fit Violet to a mother T. Aside from a decent speed stat, Liepard's stats are pretty middle of the road. Its saving grace, though, is the ability Prankster, which allows its status moves to have their priority raised by 1 stage, meaning it'll be able to get off moves like Toxic first, even if its opponent is technically faster. Fake Out and U-Turn also give this Pokemon more utility similar to Mienshao. Overall, Violet's team is primarily a special offensive team with really strong Pokemon like Salazzle, Gengar, and Gardevoir. But even if the opponent's team has some tankier Pokemon, Violet's team has a secondary game plan of chipping away to health bars with moves like Toxic. Meanwhile, Mienshao and Liepard have great synergy to Fake Out and U-Turn in and out to slowly but surely chip away at the opponent's team. Roserade could also come in to set up spikes to further deal extra chip damage to Pokemon on the opponent's side of the field on each switch-in. So, with both teams set and our trainers ready to go, let's see which queen has what it takes. Mother, over to you.
Violet Chachki. Miss Fame, I'm sorry, my dears, but you are both up for elimination. 2 queens stand before me. Ladies, this is your last chance to impress me and save yourself from elimination. The time has come.
Pokemon battle.
For your life. Good luck, ladies. And don't it up.
Miss Fame leads with Excadrill, while Violet goes with Mienshao. Now, Excadrill is weak to fighting types, so Miss Fame is going to have to swap in another Pokemon, and in comes Miss Magius instead, and who's going to actually gain immunity from that Fake Out. Violet's not going to want to stay in here and actually goes for a U-turn to pivot into another Pokemon, which happens to be Gengar, who's going to take a Dazzling Gleam from Miss Magius. Knowing that Gengar is a specially offensive threat, Fame brings in her specially defensive ball, Milotic, to tank that Shadow Ball, but it still does 30%. Both queens are actually going to stay in here and attack. Violet's Thunderbolt doing 44% onto Milotic, ooh, and Scald nearly knocking out the Gengar, but it's not enough. Another Thunderbolt comes through and Milotic will go down. Noivern comes in here, who's actually going to outspeed Gengar and get the KO with that Air Slash, but it's going to lose a little bit of health due to that Life Orb. Violet brings in Gardevoir, and Fame is going to respond by swapping Excadrill back in. It's going to take an attack from Gardevoir. It's going to be a Moonblast, but it only does 32%. It's resisted. Knowing that a Steel-type attack is probably coming, Violet brings in Mienshao, who's going to take a huge amount of damage from that Iron Head. Miss Fame is again going to swap in Miss Magius, expecting either fighting a normal type attack, but Mienshao's actually going to pivot out with a U-turn into Liepard. At this point, Miss Fame is going to swap Blaziken in. He's going to take an attack from Liepard. It's a Dark Pulse, which is 25% of its health. And Liepard's actually going to get a Toxic off first, thanks to its ability Prankster, but will go down in one hit thanks to that high jump kick. Blaziken's ability Speed Boost will also activate at this point, increasing its speed by 1 stage. Violet brings Mienshao back in, who's regained some health thanks to Regenerator, and goes for that Fake Out. Now Toxic damage is really going to start to ramp up now on that Blaziken, as it gets another speed boost. Violet goes for a Protect here, which is huge, because Blaziken goes for that high jump kick. It's going to miss, and it's going to do recoil damage to itself and take itself out. Miss Fame is going to bring Noivern in at this point, and Violet will respond with Gardevoir. Takes an Air Slash that takes 44% off of its health bar, but it gains some health thanks to Leftovers, and Miss Fame is actually going to bring in Excadrill at this point, who's going to take another Moonblast, bringing it down low enough to trigger the Citrus Berry. Violet probably doesn't want to lose Gardevoir yet here, yep, so is actually going to sacrifice Mienshao to that Iron Head in order to get a safe switch into her next Pokemon, which is Salazzle. Now, Miss Fame is actually going to stay in here and let her Excadrill go down to that Flamethrower. Miss Fame is running low on options here, so she brings in Glalie, and is going to go for an Ice Shard to break that Air Balloon. Meanwhile, Violet's going to go for another Flamethrower on Glalie, and Glalie hangs on with 8%, but oh no, gets burned. Luckily for Miss Fame though, Moody gives Glalie a speed increase so that it can get an attack off, but with a lowered attack stat and a burn, even a 4-time super effective Earthquake doesn't KO Violet's Salazzle, and down goes Glalie to another Flamethrower. Fame brings in Noivern yet again and has to go for an Air Slash to take Salazzle out, and we're down to 2 Pokemon each, as Violet's gonna bring in Gardevoir. Now Noivern has to get the KO on Gardevoir now, or it might all be over for Miss Fame. But it's not enough. Gardevoir survives, and it's gonna retaliate with Moonblast and take Noivern out. Miss Fame's last Pokemon is Mismagius, who will be able to outspeed, but can it get the KO? Yes, a Shadow Ball will take Gardevoir out. Violet's last Pokemon is Roserade, and Miss Fame needs a critical hit in order to win. She outspeeds at this point. Shadow Ball hits but does not crit, as Roserade will take Mismagius out with an Energy Ball, and Violet will win the battle.
Violet Chachki. Shantae, you stay. Miss Fame, sashay away.
Y'all, I can't even lie, I thought Miss Fame was definitely going to win that battle. I think her team is overall built a little bit better, it's a little bit more balanced, whereas Violet's is a little bit squishier, or so it appears actually. But I think Violet played that really, really well, fully utilizing Mienshau's ability Regenerator to the best of her abilities, and making her team tankier than it might appear at first. For me, the MVP was definitely Mienshao. Not only did it get the KO on Blaziken, which could have potentially swept through Violet's team with all those speed boosts, but it kept itself healthy for most of the battle with Regenerator. So now that Miss Fame's gone, we're down to our top 5 queens, which is so exciting. And episode 10, which comes out in 2 weeks, is going to be the last episode before our grand finale. So be sure to tune in to see which queens make it to our final Elite 4. Bye!